Getting older can be rough, but it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, when we get older, we're supposed to lose muscle mass, our immunity system gets weaker, and we lose flexibility. It's just the nature of becoming older. Our cardiovascular system and our respiratory system become weaker. We can't do as much vigorous exercise, so we do less of that. Maybe some injuries that we got when we were younger from activities we did when we were really young make it harder to do some of those activities now. And all these things just start adding up. As a result, we're likely to do less physical activity. We get hurt more often. We get ill more often. I mean, I've experienced this. I got hurt a few times doing physical activities, and I can't do some of those things anymore. I definitely can't get my heart rate back up to where it was before. So one little thing adds up with another little thing, and before you know it, you're really not able to do the things that you enjoyed when you were younger. It just sort of adds up, and it's sort of a domino effect that becomes the aging process. However, you can change this. You seriously can. There are scientifically proven ways that you can change how your body reacts to aging and slow your aging process, stop it in some cases, and in some cases even reverse it. And as I'll tell you in a minute, and we'll look at some studies that prove this, there are some aspects you can get your body to be like a 20-year-old. So yes, the aging process can be brutal and hard to escape, but there is one activity, one sign of hope, and it's this little guy, cycling. And it's been proven scientifically to help with all of this. So let's dig into that. There's a study led by a guy named Pollock at King's College in the UK that found that a vigorous cycling over the long term benefits all these aging systems. And we'll talk about some of them. Some of them are pretty surprising. Now, the study examined 90 male and female cyclists, all between the ages of 55 and 79, and dove deep into what's happening in their bodies, and included taking biopsies of their muscle fiber. And the participants themselves had to qualify for the study. So they weren't just your average cyclist. They were cyclists who had been cycling for an average of about 26 years and completed some testing to ensure that they were highly trained. So they had to do some long distance cycling even to qualify for the study. So then they went ahead and did the study and published the results. And it turns out that study has been one of the most cited that gives evidence to lifetime regular vigorous exercise leading to slowing down the aging process. And it looked at slowing down the aging process at the cellular level, particularly in older cyclists. So let's consider what they found in this study and look at what you can do, cycling and otherwise, to get the same benefits that these cyclists showed in this study. Because it turns out cycling itself is necessary, but cycling on its own is not sufficient. Now, this test, along with a lot of other tests that this data comes from, is really looking at cyclists who are doing vigorous exercise. So let's talk about what vigorous exercise is, because it's different for everybody. You can't just say that vigorous exercise is a certain speed or going up a certain hill or riding a certain bike. It's not related to that. It's really related to each individual's capability. So if you really look at what vigorous exercise is and what they described in these studies, it's that point at which you really can't carry on a conversation, or say you're riding hard enough that you can say a few words and then you got to take a breath. So saying more than a few words without taking a breath is sort of hard or impossible. That's what vigorous exercise is. And the American Heart Association, turns out, recommends this type of vigorous exercise at least 75 minutes per week. And my experience with some of these recommendations is that's probably the low side. And why cycling for vigorous exercise? I'm tightening my shoes here because I'm going to get on that trainer. It turns out cycling is a pretty low impact activity, and as you know, if you tried running or other activities to try to get your heart rate up, you can hurt other parts of your body, particularly if you've had injuries in the past, or you're getting older and those joints just aren't fluid as they used to be. Some of those other activities can be pretty high impact. So cycling is a great low impact way to get that heart rate up into that vigorous level. Now we'll talk about later what you need to do to sort of supplement that, because it is low impact and there's some things you're missing because of that. Now cycling does hit a lot of your muscles, don't get me wrong. It's really good at working your lower body, as you might imagine. Does get some of the upper body too. The main things it's hitting is your gluteus maximus, which is the largest of your muscles in your butt. Hit your quadriceps up here on the top, particularly when you're out of the saddle, climbing. You get your calf muscles. My kids are jealous of my cycling calves. And the shin muscles, the muscles right up here in the front of your foot or your leg, especially if you're getting a lot of push on the pedals like this with your toes and you're pulling. So if you have clipless pedals and you're pulling a lot, you're gonna get a lot of the work done on the front of your calves. Now you are also getting some core muscle and some other upper body muscles, particularly for balance. But that is an area where you can kind of look and see, that's something you need to work on in addition to cycling. So my experience has been, and the literature supports this, if you do weightlifting in addition to your cycling, especially if it's complementary to it, and we'll talk about that, it's going to help your cycling, not just with other things, but with your cycling. And it will reduce the chance for injury. Because what weightlifting does is it starts to balance out maybe the imbalances that you created by creating very strong muscles in some parts of your leg and some parts of your body and not other parts of your body. So if you're going to do strength training, what's recommended is to complement your cycling. So if you're cycling every day, perhaps back off a little bit one day and do a little bit of strength training, I would say afterwards, so you don't ruin the form on the bicycle. Or if you're taking days off, do the weight training on an off day. The kind of training you want to do that's complementary to cycling is typically things like lunges and squats. You could do push-ups and planks. That's going to help with your core. Some upper body work that'll help with balance and help balance the entire body, so you get that resilience to other activities that I was speaking about, and just anything else that's going to increase your flexibility and make you feel a little bit better on the bike. So if you're adding weight training to cycling and you're doing a lot of cycling, what the studies have found is it eliminates or reduces something they call sarcopenia, which is the reduction of fat mass due to aging, but it also does something else. It reduces the amount of fat inside the muscle, and that's something that really hurts the muscle. So by cycling, you're reducing that, and it keeps us from getting frail. The fat in the muscles is what really leads to frailty. So cycling itself, including weight training, but definitely cycling, is because you're moving so much, and that cycling motion is just really lubricating your joints, your knees, your hips, all of those things that get tight as we age. They have a saying that motion is lotion, and it really applies to cycling. The other thing it does, because of that, it reduces the chance of osteoarthritis, which is something that older people get when they're just not moving around enough. Now let's talk about bone density. Now, if you're a regular cyclist, you've probably heard that cycling doesn't do a lot to help with bone density. In fact, if that's all you're doing, you've probably got less bone density than you should. I'm a perfect example of that. I had a bone density scan recently, and I'm on the lower end of really where I should be for my age. My first clue should have been when I broke some vertebrae in my back twice in a matter of 3 years. Now, the mountain biking accident and the ski accident probably were major contributors to that, clearly, but it did cause me some concern and made me look a little bit more seriously at what cycling was or was not doing for my bone health. So since cycling is a non-weight bearing activity and low impact, it's great for those of us who are getting older or if we've had injuries, as we mentioned, but it doesn't lead to the greater bone density, because bone density is created or increased when we put mechanical stress on the bones. And that creates a higher mineral density in our bones just by putting more weight, more stress on the bone. And so we need to come up with ways to do that. And that's why I brought up that weight-bearing exercises, strength training is a really good thing to do as a cyclist, not just because of balancing your body, but because of bone strength. If you add that, it's a perfect combination. Now, the heart and lungs are also a great beneficiary of cycling, as I'm sure you know. Cycling allows you, with low impact on the body, to work your heart, your lungs, and your blood vessels. In fact, there was a large study done out of the UK. It involved 250,000 cyclists, and it showed that vigorous exercise like cycling, like this, getting your heart rate up, would reduce the chance of cancer and other disease by 45%. And the pure operational logistics of just taking in all that oxygen improves the cells in your lungs so it can uptake that oxygen. It increases the strength of the muscles between your ribs so you can breathe more oxygen in. All of that oxygen is helping every organ in your body, including that brain. Now, this next one's a surprising one and a bonus. The same study that looked at these cyclists between the ages of 55 and 79, they found something else. These older cyclists didn't just build muscle mass and reduce fat. They built a better immune system. In fact, immune systems that mimic those much younger cyclists, in fact, in their 20s. And what they found was the T cells were built up in these older cyclists. And it's the T cells that fight off disease. So yes, cycling can make you immune to things just like somebody in their 20s. So if you're a cyclist, I'm sure you're doing it to get outside, be part of nature, challenge yourself. But clearly you're also increasing your strength, you're increasing your immunity, and you're increasing your flexibility. And yes, you're becoming much more like a 20-year-old. So let me know what you think about these ideas in the comments. I really learn as much as you do, hopefully, just by reading the comments. I really enjoy putting these videos together. If it's useful to you, subscribe, share it with somebody you care about. Keep writing, and I will see you next time.